Well, the time has just gone 7:45, and a big welcome to everyone this evening. If you have electricity, really congratulations and welcome. It can't be easy for many people in South Africa tonight who don't have generators and who are sitting at home in the dark this evening, no internet connectivity, no other connectivity. But Britt, let's go full screen, please. Let's take off the screen sharing and let's welcome everyone this evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, we're just waiting for Britt to remove the screen sharing so we can actually begin and greet everyone. So, Peter, have you got electricity where you are?
I do, but I didn't have earlier today. Fortunately, after having had a bad experience, I have had to buy an inverter.
And Dylan, where are you joining us from? And let's see if you have electricity.
So Howard, I'll be honest, actually I didn't, and I had to quickly shoot off to my sister's place. So I'm actually, and actually the funny thing is that today I didn't have water either. So it's been one of those days, I guess.
Well, it's been one of those days for South Africa. So Gavin, let's talk about you in the Cape Independence Party. Is there load shedding in the Cape?
Hey, Howard, no, we're good for now. It keeps changing from 3 to 2 to 1 till this time, that time, a bit frustrating. So when you plan for it, nothing happens. When you don't plan for it, the lights go out.
It feels like almost like it's bingo. We're shouting a number and you choose the number, and that's the degree of load shedding that we have. So Nicola, you're also sitting with genuine lights on. I'm in Cape Town as well, and I have the lights on.
Luckily, we have the lights on. So yeah, I think that's going to assist us tonight. But as Gavin says, it's a moving target, and I think you need a bit of a degree in I don't know, logistics or electronics to be able to read the changing timetables in Cape Town from 2 to 3 to 4 to 2. But luckily, we're able to keep a stage lower than the rest of the country, which makes a big difference.
Oh, that's amazing. Colin Morris, you have Herman Mashaba looking over your shoulder there. Is that just to make sure that you behave yourself tonight?
Howard, no one can keep me under control, not even Herman. But yes, he is there to make sure that I don't say anything out of the ordinary.
So all of the people on the panel this evening, we have your competitors, and I don't know if you've ever even met some of your competitors. So Daniel Shea, you've got on my screen on either side of you, you've got people competing against you in these elections. Do you, Justin, Colin, get together and all chat to each other?
So I've spent a bit of time on construction sites with Justin in the past, and so we've had a lot of working together. And Colin and I spend some time on the phone occasionally. So that is our interactions.
So let's just make sure that...
discuss on the phone, sorry.
How does this campaign are going?
We actually discussed family issues, if you must know.
Dave Fisher, I see you're on here twice.
Yes, hello.
Should you be on here twice?
Sorry, say that again?
I see you've logged in twice on this link.
Yes, one on a cell phone to watch and one on this one to be able to participate. So it shouldn't be this link, it should be 2 links.
Okay, so I'm going to try send the one into the audience, because if I can work out which one it is. Okay, I'm changing the role of one to, I hope, the audience. Let's see if that actually works. And Ralph, we haven't met. You're actually in my constituency.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I'm talking about Ralph.
Ralph. Yes, Ralph's an old friend of mine. Lives in the ward.
Ralph, can you hear us? Ralph, let us know. Give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. Okay, Ralph, looks like, can you hear us, Ralph? If not, log out and log back in. Dylan, you may want to communicate with Ralph that just to double check that he can hear us. Let's just make sure
I'm on that.
everyone that we can do sound. And Nicole, we haven't heard from you, so let's just check your sound as well.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. I see your lighting is fantastic. You must be using up all the electricity in the country at the moment.
We go off at 10, so I think you're good for a little while.
Okay, fantastic. Justin, we need some more light on your face. You're looking mighty tanned and semi-dark. So unless you're coming into these elections as a BE candidate, we need to put a lamp or something in front of you so we can actually see who we're talking to.
All right, I'll work on that. Give me half a second.
Okay. Sydney, let's unmute you and see if we can see you and hear you.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, fantastic. Now we can see and hear you. You look like you have the entire universe behind you over there. Sydney, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. You're very faint, but I can hear you.
Okay, just make your volume a little louder.
It's on full volume.
Okay, cool. I'll try to talk really loudly. Can you hear Peter when Peter talks?
Sorry?
Can you hear Peter when
you hear
Peter
me?
talks?
Yes, I can hear you, Petria.
Okay, good.
Okay. Sanjeev, welcome as well. Let's just check your audio.
Testing 1 2, testing 1 2.
You're testing 1 2 very nicely. You're I warn you as well that I'm one of your constituents in Ward 74 as well. So I like to think I know more or less what's happening in our ward, but we'll find out tonight if I've got a good idea or not.
Yes, indeed.
And Faladi, let's hear from you.
Good evening.
Hi, Faladi. We can hear you, but we can't see you. Can you give us some video? I'm going to ask you to start your video because the video looks off. Faladi, can you turn your video on?
Yes, I'm turning my video on.
Aha.
Aha, Faladi, it looks like you're sitting in the dark.
Yes, because we don't have electricity, it's load shedding.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I think we're going to be talking a lot about load shedding tonight. I think it's going to be top of everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Ralph, can you hear us and see us?
Yes, I saw you very
okay,
nicely.
No, I'm asking Ralph if he can do this.
But he looks like he's talking and we can't hear him.
We can't hear him. Ralph, can you hear us?
We can't hear him and he's not muted. Ralph, if you can hear us.
Okay, Dylan will call Ralph and try and sort it out. And I don't know why Justin Kruger has gone dark and Sydney's gone dark as well.
Can you see me?
Okay, now we can see you. Now we can see you. We can even see little soccer players behind you. Is that a soccer player kicking the ball?
Well, you could say that. Standing on top of the ball. Standing on top of the ball.
Standing on top of the ball. Okay. So can I ask everyone who's joining us this evening to check, did you all vote in the last national election? By show of hands. Did everyone vote in the last national election? Is there anyone who didn't vote in the last national election? Justin, you didn't vote in the last national election, or you did?
I didn't.
You didn't. Okay, we're going to ask you in a second why not. Did you all vote in the last municipal election?
Yes, I did it.
Okay, Justin, no.
No.
Okay, so before we begin, tell us why you haven't been expressing your civic duty and will by voting in the last few re-elections.
Because I don't know the candidates, Howard. I don't know them enough. I feel it's great speeches, but it's just textbook speeches, and I don't really trust that. So that was my thought.
Do you think the people know you as a candidate, or do you think they're not going to vote?
Well, some should. A lot would know me, but it's a fair point because you don't know. So that's my preference. I'd like to know who I'm dealing with. I'd like to have seen a bit of videos with the guys. I'd like to have seen just a little more. I found it was very, a bit of stuff on e-news. The odd poster just wasn't enough for me to put my signature to something.
So, okay. But can I just ask you a question? If that's the expectation, if everybody expected that, then very few people would vote, because I'm looking at all of you, and while I've read about most of you, whatever I could, I can't say I know any of you particularly well, but I'm going to vote on Monday. So
that a question?
Well, it's just an interesting thing, because if that's how you feel, that could be a bit difficult if people took you as an example.
Well, if I, for example, like Colin Morris, I know Colin, I know of him, I know family who know him. So there was a little bit more of a connection to that type of a candidate. So in that case, I would have maybe gone that way. It's just
Ralph, very quickly, Ralph, I think we can hear you. Talk for one more second. Ralph, can you hear us? Okay, Ralph, maybe unplug your headphones. Maybe that will work. Okay, Belinda, let's quickly check with you. Let's do sound and audio.
Hello, everyone. I can hear everyone clearly. I'm good, thank you. How are you? How's everyone?
Excellent. So, Belinda, help us. How do we pronounce your last name?
It's Kaiser Etiozonjoko.
Wow.
How does one get a last name like that?
Well, by marriage.
Okay. Couldn't you have chosen a Smith? It would have been so much easier.
Well, there's a few Smiths in the family, but unfortunately, yeah.
and Wayne Sussman, you have electricity this evening?
I have electricity this evening. I live in Ward 73, where quite a number of former presidents of South Africa live, so I think we sometimes get spared.
This is maybe something that it only makes difference when we maybe go out and cut their cables the way ours get cut. Maybe we'll have a different result then. So,
correct.
Peter, we're going to start in 1 minute, but I want to ask our non-candidates who are Wayne and Peter, have you decided yet who you're voting for?
So, yeah, I have, but tonight will be very interesting because it might just sway how I feel, because I feel like I have to keep researching and making sure that my decision is right for me. I think it's a very personal thing, but at this point I have decided.
And Wayne Sussman, have you made your decision yet?
Howard, this is akin to a rugby match. So many candidates, so many parties have had the ball in their hands with an open try line and are doing anything but to knock the ball on. So I'm still playing the field.
Okay. Well, the time has just gone 8 p.m. and a huge welcome to everyone who's joining us around South Africa and around the world tonight. Tonight, we actually want to meet face-to-face with a number of candidates in different wards around the country, people in Sea Point in Cape Town, people in Umhlanga in KwaZulu-Natal, people in Glen Hazel in Johannesburg, as well as the Ethel Melrose area, Orange Grove area that constitutes Ward 74 in Johannesburg. We're going to be coming face to face with all of the candidates this evening. But before we begin, Britt, number one, where are you? Let's wave at everyone. Thank you. You're on controls this evening, Britt. Where are you?
So I'm in Modderfontein in Johannesburg.
Are you going to be voting on Monday?
Of course.
That is the correct answer. And do you know who you're voting for yet, or is your decision still up in the air?
So it's 90-ish% sorted, decided.
Okay, but not 100% yet.
No, we'll see what everyone has to say tonight.
So if you're watching us on Zoom, please remember at the bottom of your screen is a Q&A button. Please put any of your questions for any of the candidates or everyone under Q&A. If you're watching us tonight on Facebook or on YouTube, please just put your comments or questions into the chat section on either YouTube or Facebook, and Britt will go in and pull those answers across. And Dylan Berger, tonight was your responsibility to gather all of these candidates together. A huge thank you. Was it like herding cats?
Yeah, some stages have felt a little bit like that, but look, it's firstly, it's great to see put a name to some of the faces of the candidates, and first, and also credit to the candidates for putting themselves out there and agreeing to join tonight, because it's never easy, especially when people, you don't know the questions that are coming your way, and also for putting themselves out there to stand for elections. So credit to all of you guys, and thank you for joining. And it's nice to have spoken to some of you and met you as well. I'm actually listening with a lot of keen interest, because I'm in Ward 72 right now, so I have a vested interest in what I have to hear tonight. And I know Howard, you're asking people if they decided if they know who they've voted for yet. And I think I voted 3 or 4 times now. I think this is the first elections that I'm actually not 100% sure yet. So it's going to be a very fascinating evening, and hopefully by the end of tonight I'll have a good idea.
So on behalf of the South African Jewish Report, welcome to the 126th webinar since lockdown began. Just a reminder that the latest edition of the South African Jewish Report is now available online at www.sajr.co.za. Britt, do you have a copy of the newspaper you can actually show us? It will be delivered to all of our distribution centers, 248 distribution locations tomorrow. So please remember to go and pick up your latest edition of the South African Jewish Report. As well, please remember, Jewish Achiever Awards is just around the country, around the corner, 7th of November coming up. If you haven't booked your table, please go book your table. So Britt, first of all, Jewish Report, go book your table, RSVP at sajewshreport.co.za. I'm sorry, that's all in capital letters. It makes it close to impossible to read. RSVP at sajewshreport.co.za, and you're able to book your table for Jewish Achiever Awards. And we are opening up our voting site as well. You'll see the details in the latest edition of the newspaper. Sorry, can I ask everyone to go on mute? You can't be talking while I'm talking.
Okay.
So there's a bit.ly link, bit.ly vote JAA 2021. Britt, I'm going to ask you to please change that bit.ly link over there to all lower cases, because bit.ly is all case sensitive, and that's absolutely impossible to actually do. So Britt, if you could please change the bit.ly link to vote JAA 2021 to all lower cases, I'd really appreciate it, so people don't have to be going caps, lowercase, caps, lowercase. But we will in fact put the new bit.ly link into the chats this evening to allow you all to vote. But we're going to start off with Wayne Sussman. And Wayne Sussman, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're going to ask everyone other than Wayne and Peter to turn off your cameras and to go on mute. And we're going to call you all back one at a time. But Wayne Sussman, the elections on the 1st of November. Is Wayne still with us? Wayne has just lost electricity, and he is now going to his in-laws to try pick up some electricity. And he will join us as soon as he gets to his in-laws, because I see Belinda says as well, load shedding power has just gone off. So we're expecting some chaos tonight, chaos courtesy of our current government, but maybe, Peter, that means we should jump straight in with our ward candidates. And can we ask all the candidates from Ward 72 to turn on their cameras? So Colin Morris, that's you, and Daniel Shea, and Paledi, and Sydney, and Justin, and Yvette.
Is Yvette with us? I didn't see her earlier.
Yeah, I don't think she's joined as of yet. I haven't seen her as of yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Colin Morris, let's start with you. Action SA. It's a new political party. Okay, guys, that means that you have to either be on mute. Okay, Ralph, we can hear you. Please go on mute or stop talking. One of the two. Sorry. Okay, I'm putting Ralph on mute and I'm turning off his video. Sorry, it's like herding cats a little in local municipal elections. Colin Morris, let's start with you. It's a new political party. Why should people have trust? What is this party doing that's different to all other parties?
Evening, Howard. Thank you so much for having me and everyone else on board. I hope you can hear me properly. I'm sitting in the dark, but my UPS is working. I'm going to need to add before I go into why you should vote for Action SA. I love the color of your T-shirt. Thank you. Action SA is definitely a new party. However, most of the senior management, most of the senior people have come from other very serious political backgrounds. They left those backgrounds and they left those parties because they didn't believe in the policies and the structures that they were in, and they started Action SA as a totally and true political party that represents all the people within the boards, or all the people within the cities. Action SA, when they decided to fight for the elections, the LGEs around the country, also picked only certain of the cities to contest, not all the cities. So it was a very clever decision made by Mr. Mashaba and the executive. And one of the things that Action SA is pushing and saying very clearly is that we are here to represent the people. We are here to make sure that the ward and the voters are represented, and we will not deal or handle with corruption.
So Colin, let's stop there, because Ward 72 includes Glen Hazel, Linksville, Silvermont, Sunningdale, Fairmont. It's almost a homogeneous type of ward, but the main issue in that ward appears to be the issue of water. What can you do practically to solve the issue of water? Because that's the thing that's plagued this ward going back probably the last year.
Okay, so it's more than just water. Water, certainly in the Glen Hazel Fairmont area. Electricity, there's now a substation that just burnt out in Orange Grove. There were homeless people, I believe, or people that shouldn't be living in the substation living there, who stole or attempted to steal the cable. They also caused a fire. So half of Orange Grove and a whole bunch of Sydenham doesn't have electricity at the moment. So to answer your question, one of the biggest problems that the city of Johannesburg is plagued with is, and it's not only Ward 72, it's the whole of city of Johannesburg, is lack of infrastructure upgrade, lack of infrastructure work. And so what can I do personally? What I can do personally once I'm elected is to make sure that, first of all, everybody gets communicated around the ward about what is happening. When Action SA is elected, make sure that the infrastructure work gets done. There hasn't been infrastructure upgrades for many, many years. Money has been this incorrectly used. And infrastructure certainly is a priority. Crime a secondary.
Colin, sorry, I'm going to interrupt there. I understand the problem, but I'm not hearing any solution.
Well, the upgrade of the infrastructure. Money
So
needs.
why do you think you will succeed when the previous councillor hasn't, or the previous mayor hasn't? Why do you think Action SA will succeed there?
Because what we're going to first do, and Mr. Mashaba well, not in Mr. Mashaba, Action SA's manifesto says it, is that we will make sure that the money is correctly spent, ensure that all this extra personnel that are employed around the city of Johannesburg are correctly employed, and make sure that all that infrastructure work gets done.
But Mr. Mashaba was mayor of Johannesburg, and it wasn't done.
But he didn't complete his mayoral duties. He left early because of internal issues within his party and his partners. And if you look at his history, he did get a huge amount done, very positive stuff done in the short period that he was around. And this is very different. Although there's talk of coalitions, what we're aiming for is to have Action SA as a leading party in the city of Johannesburg, and then we will be able to get things done.
So, Colin, before I hand over to Peter to speak to Daniel Shea from the DA, can you just tell us, are you a resident within that ward, and how long have you lived within that ward?
Yes, I've lived in Ward 72 all my life. I grew up in Fairmount, then moved to Sydenham. I've been part of the Norwood Community Police Forum. I've been part of the Sandringham Police Forum. I've been party to this, and I'm on all the correct WhatsApp groups. I know exactly and intimately involved in the water issues in Glen Hazel and Fairmount, the electrical issues in Orange Grove and Sydenham, the pothole issues all over, the park issues, the pick it up issues. So yes, I'm definitely a member of this ward and have been all my life.
Thanks. Peter, you're going to speak to Daniel now.
Yes. Daniel, how are you?
Very well, and yourself, Peter?
Good. Are you also a Ward 72-ite? Do you live there?
I do live here, yes. I live
How
in
long
Silvermont.
have you lived there?
So I've been in Ward 72 for 8 years since I got married. I grew up across the highway, but I moved here when I got married.
Okay. And so you've experienced all the frustrations, I guess.
100%, yes. I mean, it's yeah.
And most of the time that you've been living there, it's been a DA area, right?
It's been a DA area for pretty much 20 years. So
yeah.
yes.
So you're coming in, if you get in as a DA, what are you going to do differently? I mean, it's a DA area, always has been, but look at all the problems.
So there's two facets to this. There's the opportunity that we have in taking the city and running the city, in which case it becomes a much easier position to work from, because at least you have the executive on your side and you can be getting officials to work through using the executive. From the other side, if you're working in opposition, as we have been working for a long time, except for the last 3 years after 2016, what I bring to the table is my qualification in civil engineering. I am an expert in infrastructure. I know infrastructure. I can tell you how to fix pipes, how to repair roads. This is my expertise. So I'm coming here. We don't have engineers in the city. The city literally doesn't have engineers. So people are repairing pipes with no direction. I at least can contribute some of my professional experience to giving them some direction. I might not be able to force them to use it, but at least it's some professional advice being given.
Okay, well that is interesting. But what kind of sway do you actually hold? I mean, if you do come in as opposition, it puts you in a difficult situation. How would you deal with that?
So the key to getting officials to work for you when you're in opposition is establishing good relationships with the officials, establishing a need for them to do things on your behalf and to fix the ward. If you can prove through empirical data and through evidence that the city is losing money because of water leaks, or the city is losing out, they have no choice but to work with you. So I will be establishing the good relationships, having coffee with every official I need to have to make them work, but also giving them reasons to do the job that they're meant to do.
That sounds good to me. This is being recorded, so we'll see what you have, what you
I'm
say
happy.
in a year's time. Over to you, Howard.
So I'm delighted to welcome Faladi. Faladi, welcome. Lovely to see you this evening.
Oh, thank you.
So Faladi, give us your understanding. What are the big issues in Ward 72?
The big issue in Ward 72, people are not working. And then we have problem of drug abuse. And then we have falling infrastructure, such as damaged road, street light, water pipe burst.
So Faladi, why do you think that you can fix these problems while the ANC has actually ruled Johannesburg for most of the period since 1994, and yet has been unable to fix any of those?
I think we can fix this together, not me only or ANC. The community will fix this together. This will help us to identify illegal activity in our ward and report them to the relevant authorities.
So it can't be easy being an ANC candidate on a day when the electricity fails and most of the country is in darkness. Do you think, in fact, the ANC should be accepting responsibility for the terrible mess that the country is in relating to electricity at the moment?
Yes, I think because we're here to rectify our mistakes.
So there will be some people who think that the ANC has had many chances to rectify. It's been in control of Johannesburg with the exception of the 2 years that Herman Mashaba was mayor, but it's been in control of Johannesburg for 24 years of the, 26, 27 years of democracy. Has the ANC not had its opportunity to fix its errors, and we keep on giving it back additional chances, but instead of fixing the errors, corruption really just overtakes the city when the ANC is in charge?
Yes, I believe and I know there is a corruption, but it's not all the ANC who doing the corruption. Some of people doing the corruption. So we are here now as a candidate. If we win election, we'll work hard to rectify all the mistake of others.
So you've clearly got a difficult job to do, because in the last election, the ANC only got 12% of the votes within that ward. So what is the one thing that you could tell people to make them change their mind to support you rather than any of the other candidates?
So my plan for to foster improvement dialogue amongst all the ward residents, create a better working relations with the community to reduce crime, improving reporting of illegal buildings, drugs abuse, and falling infrastructure such as damaged road, street light, and water pipes burst for prompt maintenance, including improving cleaning of the public parks. So as a candidate, I will communicate amongst Ward 72 residents so that we work we work towards same goals. This will help us to identify illegal activity and everything. So we improve relation with the resident of what will help us to fight and reduce crime together. So I can't work alone. So if I work with community, I think we'll just do the best.
So Faladi, last question before Peter speaks to Sydney. Our last question is, are you a resident of the ward and how long have you lived in the ward?
I am a resident of Ward 72 because I'm working at Glen Hazel. Now I have 16 years in Glen Hazel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And Peter, you have a very interesting discussion now with the Freedom Front Plus.
Yes, but can I just say something that there was somebody who posted in the chat wanting to know whether the DA-elect candidate would share his mobile phone. And it was something that we discussed before this. And my question is not just to Daniel, because I see that he already gave his number, but would everybody give their personal cell phones if they are elected? Please just put your hand up in this ward. Just put your hand up if you'll give your personal telephone number. Colin, no? Paladi?
Hello?
Would you give your personal telephone number to the people in the ward?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, that's important to know, because I think that a lot of people today are very frustrated with not having access to the person who represents them. Sydney,
Yes.
Are you there? Can you?
Oh, yeah.
I can see the top of your head, not the rest of you.
Sorry,
There,
I'm
that's
on
a
my
bit
phone.
better. That's fine. That's fine.
Load shedding, as you know.
Yes, yes. So Sydney, representing the Freedom Front Plus, you are a seriously minority group, which many people see as right-wing. How will you make an impact in a government, whether it be a local government, whether it be either ANC, DA, or EFF as the biggest parties? How will you, coming from this position, make an impact and help the people of Ward 72?
Well, let's look at it this way. I've also lived in this ward for about 18 years. I know the problems will again. I walk through the potholes, I drive over the potholes with the street lamps going off. I see the crime that's going on, which bothers me tremendously. So yeah, I'll make an impact, all right. I've been making an impact for a number of years now, as I run the minority desk for the Freedom Front, and in that is that I help our ward councillor escalate problems. People phone me after they've reported it, and they give me the reference number and I escalate it. And luckily, I managed to do it within 24 to 48 hours that the problem sorted out. So my record itself, speaks for itself.
How do you do it? How do you do it? I mean, when you say escalate, how do you do it? I mean,
well, okay. For example, you've got a burst pipe, a council burst pipe outside your house, water streaming. You put in your complaint to the council, to City Water. You get a reference number. From the reference number, you then wait, and it can take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever the case is. In the meantime, you've reported it to your ward councillor, and nothing seems to be happening. Then people come to me out of desperation, and I escalate it. And for some reason, as I said, who knows why, I've managed to get it done with my our councillor, Franco de Lange, and we seem to get managed, to get it done in 24 to 48 hours. And that has given me quite a lot of support, because obviously the best form of branding and advertising is through word of mouth. And people have been phoning me, sending me emails. We're getting new members daily. And so, yeah, we've been recognized as a party to be reckoned with.
So, but in your ward, you personally, if you get in, the kind of sway you will have will be in enabling people to fix those problems. What else can you do? Their personal problems as a minority party. I mean, sitting amongst all these.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Let me explain something. Being a minority party means that we're fighting for the rights of minority. We don't believe in affirmative action or BEE. We believe the best man for the job, or woman, the best person for the job, irrespective of their color. Irrespective of their color. And we've proved ourselves, as I say, in council. We've proved ourselves in this ward. I have proved it. The Freedom Front has proved it. And yes, obviously, I'll have to start joining what they call it, more organizations on the ground, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
You know, there's just a lot we do and we continue doing. And even if I don't get in, you know, no vote is a wasted vote. Let me tell you that, no matter what my opposition might say, because we've got the PR system. So if we don't get in there, we'll get in through the PR. But I will be here to serve the people on the ground.
Great. Thank you very much. Over to you, Howard.
Thanks. Can I just ask Sydney before he goes, you're a candidate in Ward 72 and Ward 74. In which ward do you actually live? Are you in 72?
I actually live in Ward 73 in on the border of Orange Grove and Islands North.
Okay, so you're a candidate in 72 and 74, but yet you live in 73.
Yeah, but I'm right next door to it.
Okay.
I'm actually 2 minutes away. It's not that I live in Sandton or Roodepoort. I'm here.
Okay.
You know, people phone me up, getting my motor car, and within 7 minutes, I'm at the Glen Hazel Shopping Centre or wherever.
Okay, cool. So Justin Kruger, is a vote for something like the Civic Movement of South Africa a wasted vote?
Howard?
Yes. Okay, let's try mute some of those people who are not on mute. Okay. Feladi, I'm going to try and mute you because unfortunately that noise is interfering. Justin, I was asking you whether a vote for the Civic Movement of South Africa, isn't that really a wasted vote? Currently, there are no Civic Movement of South Africa candidates within the municipality. What makes you think you can get elected?
Well, you hit coming quick, Howard. Nice shot. Quick one. The truth is, so we want to set an example in Ward 72. So yes, Ward 72 is #1. It's going to be the pioneer for us. As a movement, we have been around since 2018. And as a civic movement, we do goodwill and general betterment within our communities. So that's what we're coming from. We're not coming from a political post. We're kind of the good guys. And we're the good guys that are tired of looking at the big guys who are sitting in their respective seats of power and asking them to do their job and to fulfill their promises. We're tired of that. So in 2018, we registered with the IEC so that we can get, you know, fellow goodies or that guys that do their best to actually get into a seat of power, of some kind of power. Now, a ward councillor seat is not a huge power. It's not a big thing. It's a very administrative post. And a lot of people need to understand that. At the end of the day, it's up to the city to do their job. Now, why you wouldn't be wasting your vote is because you'd be voting for someone that has no enemies per se. I don't have an opposition party, big party that are fighting with me, or this guy doesn't like that guy, or this guy's suspected of corruption. It's just a very clean slate. It's a new B, a small b with a clean slate, but I have the exact same powers. I will have the exact same powers as anyone else that's sitting here tonight. The mandate of a ward councillor is an individual thing.
Let's move away from theory to actual practice. So let us presume you become the ward councillor for Ward 72. What is your plan relating to water, which seems to be the main issue of the ward?
You know what? I don't have that answer. I believe the community need to put forth their suggestions. Everyone's coming with an idea from the parties, the respective political parties. Oh, we should do it like this, or maybe we should do it like that, or maybe no one's really stopping to ask there's a lot of brains in our community. Let's start getting opinions from the brains within our community. Obviously, you have to be qualified, but my MO is to put my feelers out there and to get people to come and get involved on an intellectual level. And let's talk. How do we do this? I mean, I don't believe a single councillor knows what to do.
So you've obviously had a chance to go pick some of those brains within the area. Water and electricity. What are the brains within that area actually saying to you currently?
Well, again, it's very old infrastructure. So I've spoken to civil engineers. They say it's old. It's a classic case of ill-maintained old infrastructure. Now you can have the great, we need to fix it. We need to upgrade it. Fantastic. Where's the money for it? You're talking about a council that just, the budget is always in peril. So we need to come up with something new, Howard. We can say, you're going to look at this, we're going to look at that. So we need to come up with something new in terms of the water infrastructure. That's A. Not to negate that we're going to stop with the normal processes that work, but we need something new because you're going to keep barking the same bark. Yeah, they need to be accountable. They need to fix it. Yeah, we know this. We've known this for 15 years. This is nothing new. But we're going to keep banging our heads. We need a new answer. That's in terms of water. In terms of electricity.
Are you saying we need a new answer, but you don't know what that answer is?
I'm opening up the gates to new answers.
Okay, cool. Justin, thank you for joining us this evening. Much appreciated. So Dylan, there are some people who never appeared on our panel tonight, but everyone was in fact invited. So from that ward, we also asked, for example, the ACDP candidate, Avern, who said no or didn't respond to us. We invited Moshe from the EFF, who didn't respond to us. And we invited Yvetchen from the United Independent Movement, who never responded to us either. But
no, she did. She specifically wanted to be on with us. She emailed us to say, but didn't arrive. Yeah, didn't arrive. Accepted, but didn't arrive.
But am I correct, Dylan, that all of the candidates, in fact, were invited on, and everyone who accepted or came on is available to us?
Yeah, so thank you for that, Howard. Yes, so everybody was invited. We threw out the net to all candidates from different parties. We reached out to Doug and tried our best to get in touch with everybody we could. Some were available, some were uncontactable. But yeah, everybody got a fair and open opportunity to be here this evening. And yeah, unfortunately, there are one or two no-shows, which does happen, unfortunately. And the show does go on in the meantime.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dylan. Thank you so much. So, Peter, shall we move on to C Point, which is Ward 54?
Sorry, Howard, excuse me. I believe I only got one question and all the other candidates had more questions. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I think you had I think I asked you multiple questions during your time allocation, Justin. You can go back onto the recording and actually have a look at that.
Sounded like one long question.
I think we gave you fair and ample time, Justin. Go and time yourself and your recording. You'll see we were fair to you.
Thank you, Howard.
So yes, I think C Point is a very good idea. Any news from Wayne?
So Wayne, we know in the load shedding is heading off to try and find somewhere with electricity that he can join us from. But can we ask the candidates from C Point Ward 54 to turn on their cameras? And we have joining us Nicola, we have Gavin and Paul, but I don't think Paul has actually joined us this evening. Maybe stuck. Nicola, maybe we start with you. How many candidates are actually contesting this ward? Someone just posted a question to say there were 30-something candidates in this ward.
Unbelievably, that's correct. 32 candidates standing for the position, many political parties we've never heard of before. And I think the first time we're seeing them on the ballot, and certainly we're not seeing them campaigning in the area at all. So it's a bit of a mystery.
So the DA, in fact, got in the last elections 93% of this vote. Do you see that, in fact, being chipped away by the other 31 parties that are there? We've got the Cape Independent Party that we're going to hear from in a second. We've got the Freedom Front Plus. Is politics changing in the Western Cape, or is the DA still maintaining a strong stranglehold of power within that area?
Thanks for the question. A great question, because I think the 32 parties that are standing are raising a number of eyebrows of what that means and the implications. But no, I think the DA is standing strong in the city, and I think we're going to see excellent results on Monday when the results start trickling in late in the evening. And I think we'll see that in Ward 54 as well. I think that the influx of the smaller parties is going to mean that the smaller parties are taking votes from each other. Many of them haven't stood before. We've had the Cape Party in the by-election in 2019, which stood along with the ANC and the DA. And I think the Freedom Front Plus, who's standing for the first time, will be taking votes away from the Cape Party rather than from the Democratic Alliance. So I think that's going to affect changes there. But, you know, I think that we will see a strong turnout from voters in the ward. Our polling in the ward has been excellent. Our interactions, we've had lots of information tables, blue waves. We've been out on the streets, and we've obviously been doing a massive canvassing telephone campaign since February already. And the results that are coming out of that are really positive.
So, Nicola, the DA seems to have done a fairly good job in the Western Cape, and probably a better job in Cape Town than it's done in other cities around the country. But I'm in Cape Town at the moment, and I was in Sea Point this morning, and the issue of homelessness seems to be a complete disaster within your ward.
I agree, but let's not isolate it to the ward alone. I think it's a city issue that's across the city. It's definitely not an island of Sea Point that's affected only. As you say, the city has done well. I think we've done exceptionally well in managing through 2 black swan events that we've had to deal with. And also when I listen to your discussions around Ward 72 and what the issues are that they are dealing with there, you realize actually how much the slogan that the Democratic has in this election, that Cape Town works, is so accurate, that Cape Town does work. And that's not to say there's not more to be done or things that could have been done better or issues that have been raised, because of course that's inevitable. But Cape Town works, and we do need to do more and carry on doing more, and that's crucial. The homelessness issue is a citywide issue, and I think we've seen it nationally and internationally as well. And with COVID and economic realities of people, you know, it's made people aware how much of our population lives on a paycheck to paycheck basis and on the fringe of really being in a disaster situation themselves, and how COVID has impacted on that. But of course, homelessness was here before COVID, and it will remain in a sense. So it's a citywide issue, but definitely foremost in the minds of the residents of the Atlantic Seaboard. We've had some great successes in the ward over the last 2 years. I've only been in this position 2.5 years. We've really gone from really putting significant more emphasis on social development in the ward. We have moved from 1 field worker to 15 field workers engaging every day with the homeless to give them opportunities to come off the streets into shelters, into the city's safe space. The city has drastically increased the safe spaces that are available for the homeless to seek shelter in. And those are city-funded spaces, which is a transition between living on the streets and formal shelters. And we've had another one open that's close to the Atlantic Seaboard to assist. And we have a number of people, and every week we have successes of people going through those programs. In our sub-council, we've set up a social development forum, which has brought together all the NGOs and the community groups who are running amazing projects to also assist and help the homeless off the street. Of course, there is also the law enforcement side, which does need to run at the same time as social interventions and development. I think the key to long-term successes here is social development and helping people off the streets into long-term sustainable options. But law enforcement does play a part. And of course, I think it's been very well publicized that the City of Cape Town's bylaws have been challenged at every opportunity. There's currently 5 cases against the city, or the city is defending, to be able to enforce its bylaws, which are currently interdicted. So a law enforcement member is not able to tackle or deal with a structure in any part of the city without running the risk of being personally charged by SAPs for doing so, which has actually really become a ridiculous proportion. So effectively, the bylaws are set aside at the moment. We've got the Disaster Management Act as well. So the focus has really been on social intervention and social development to aid people off the street, first price getting reunified with family, secondly into shelters and assisted in other ways. And the successes are there. And I think it's maximizing those and increasing them.
Let me interrupt you there for a second, because we're obviously heading into the holiday season, and much of the Cape economy, particularly in your ward, Atlantic Seaboard, that's an area that's dramatically affected by tourism, both local domestic tourism as well as international tourism. How do you see the next 2 months playing out for the tourism sector in the Western Cape?
Yeah, well, we're seeing very positive numbers. We're seeing a real increase. Great to have our events back on again. So we're having big events again, which are attracting people to the city. We've got the film industry, which has really started up again, as we've seen a number of big film shoots happening across the city. Plus, we know that a number of the airlines are flying again to the city and new routes are being opened up. And we're hearing good things coming out of the hotels and car hire companies, etc. So we're expecting a really good season over December, January, perhaps not what we've seen in the past, but very positive movement forward. And it really has to happen. I think as Cape Townians, we've said we cannot do any more the lockdown and the economic hardship that lockdown has caused. The massive loss of jobs in the hospitality industry, for example, it's crippling. And the economy needs to be restarted and reinvigorated, and tourism is a vital part of that. And so it's reassuring to see it opening up again. And the Atlantic Seaboard is ready. Yes, there are issues like any parts of the city, but they're ready. It's booming. It's beautiful. The promenade is looking amazing. The beaches are great. And then they're ready for our tourists to come visit.
So, Nicola, I have one last question before Peter's going to speak to Gavin about the Cape Independence Party. And I concede I used to be a DA voter for many years. I voted for numerous parties, including the ANC, including the Green Party. And I used to be a DA voter. But your party is looking increasingly like a white-colored and Indian party. It seems to have chased away all of its senior black leadership. It doesn't represent, for me, the sort of South Africa that I'd like to see. Helen Zille, to me, is a problematic figure. And I'm not sure I can any longer buy into the vision of a democratic alliance that has a grand vision for South Africa, the way Mmusi Maimane, when he was leader of your party, actually could express. You've got 1 minute to try convince me that I'm not voting for a minority-only party that doesn't represent my grand vision for South Africa.
Howard, I would just refer you straight away to go look at our makeup of our mayoral candidates, for starters, and you'll see the diversity there. We're looking at amazingly strong black women who are taking on mayoral candidate roles. I mean, that's phenomenal. Plus coloured males, plus black males. And if you look at our Cape Town caucus, for example, any photo will show you immediately that it's absolutely untrue that DA is anyway turning into a white party in any shape or form. I think we are the most diverse party from a perspective of not only race, but religion and, your LGBTQI identifications, etc. So there is no question, and there's no political party on the spectrum in South Africa that is really as representative of the DA. And visually, you can see it. When you look at any picture of our rallies and our parades, our blue waves, we are fully representative of the South African demographic.
Nicola, Joel, thank you so much for joining us, Petty. So you've got an interesting discussion about the Cape Independence Party.
I sure do. And sitting in Johannesburg, it's going to be really interesting to find out from Gavin why he wants to shut the rest of the country off from Cape Town. Tell us.
Well, good evening, Peter. Thank you. I think just having a chat now, I just think, and just hearing from Nicola as well, it just shows you how the system has failed. Being in opposition, you voted X party to keep Y party out. How did that help in lockdown? Please explain that. It didn't. So yes, hands are tied, etc. That's why we need to secede and we need to decentralize power and return it to the voters. Where you have parties that have their blank check, which they've had for many, many years, what has happened? And what has been done? You look at, the list is endless. You look at load shedding, we're not going to go down that. We all know where the problems lie. Yeah. So we've got to return the power to the voters And we've got to, just an example why the Western Cape, we pay 200 billion rand in tax on a yearly basis. We get 50 billion back from National Treasury. Yet people say we are surviving, we are the better run ward, etc. We could be so much better. We cut your taxes in half, we're still twice as rich to put money back into schools, electricity, hospitals,
Gavin, I'm going to
etc.
stop you. I'm going to stop you. I mean, it's very easy to say what other people have done wrong. And you're 100% right. But what can you do to change it?
Decentralize the power. The system is not only now in the last 27 years we've had, it came from the British Empire. It came from the apartheid government. It is now in the current regime we are sitting in now. The system has failed us. We need to change that system. And I agree with Justin Kruger 100%. Something new has to be done. And people say, why only the Western Cape? There are many other people in KwaZulu-Natal. The Upper Temba tribe in the Eastern Cape are wanting to secede as well. You can go and look at all of those as well. So it's the beginning. You know, we don't believe in politics that is left and right. We believe in politics that is right and wrong.
But
so we want to keep.
This is all very, what can I say? Academic or it's words. Tell me what you're going to do for your people in your ward. Let's start with that. What are you going to do if you come become a councillor? What are you going to do? How are you going to help? If I lived in Sea Point, how are you going to help me?
What needs to happen is that you need to drop the controlling party to below 50%, where they don't have their full control over certain things. And it's rubbish and lies where people say that you cannot do because X party is going to come in, they're going to form coalitions. It's not going to happen. Mathematically, the Western Cape have always said we don't want that party. We want to have our own governance. And if you drop the party, they will be forced to take care of what is here. So, and that returns power back to the voters. What would you like to see being done? Atlantic Seaboard, we pay one of the highest rates and taxes in the country. The place is filthy. It is disgusting. My son is the 4th generation Sea Pointer in my family. He asked me, Daddy, did you grow up here? I'm embarrassed to tell him that, yes, Daddy grew up here in Sea Point. So it needs to change. You need to have the community work together, not about pointing fingers, as opposed to where it needs to be. Neighborhood watches. Yes, we've had very big issues with regards to the lockdown levels. Neighborhood watches were set up, it was approved, everything was done. We were unable to do anything because of the lockdown levels and public gatherings, etc. That will increase. That now that we can move forward, that's going to be great. Get the community together and get them to vote, get them to talk about what's going to happen. It's easy to sit behind a keyboard and complain about everything. People need to see what they want, and that's what the council needs to give them. You need to have a local person. And you need to have a local person that lives in the ward and a person that's been here for many, many years.
Now I totally get that, but I'm sitting here and thinking, okay, what you're saying, your ideals are great, they're lofty, they're wonderful, but I can't see what you're going to do for me about, I don't know, the water situation, the electricity situation. Are you going to help with homeless people? You know, what are you going to do about that?
Homelessness is not a crime. The lack of political will has caused this because people want to be too politically correct in how they're perceived in the media, as opposed to the city was asleep. They should have taken many precautions before that to get things in place to have it done. It wasn't done because political correctness was preferred and to how they're perceived in the media, as opposed to actually taking action when it should have been done.
So what would you do? What action would you take?
You need to hold people accountable for what they're doing, and you need to have certain things put into place where if you have people in council as a voice, which currently there isn't anything because everything gets overruled, where you have people that are helping making decisions, that's where things are going to change.
I'm not hearing any action, Gavin. I'm not hearing any action. I'm hearing you explaining things away without telling me practically what you plan to do. What will you do with the people on the streets who are sleeping on the streets now that everybody's arguing about and trying to find, what are you going to do in your party?
That's where you need to assist the city in the current positions that they've got, the current NGOs and organizations that they've got to try and assist. The problem is with the homelessness comes the crime, and that's where city bylaws need to be enforced. We understand the situation that is sitting in now. Unfortunately, the crime comes with it. So that's where it comes about education and about getting the homeless. It's not a crime to be homeless. It's having certain things put into place, certain projects that need to be initiated and get people back as they've done correctly now, getting them back to their families, etc. Yet the crime needs to be enforced. And that comes back to down is to, they voted X to keep Y out, Y keeps coming in and overruling. So that's why it needs to change.
How, if you had control, how would you get them? You say they must get off the street. How would you do that?
Not necessarily get off the street. It's about education. I'm talking about the criminals that need to be the whole bylaw situation, and the crime needs to be dealt with an iron fist. It really has to be, because it is dangerous walking around with people, elderly people, and the comment that comes back is, oh, the person didn't need stitches. It's not an option. You know, the care needs to be taken, so people need to be held accountable for that. That's where you're going to have your voice in council that will actually fight for you, which currently is not there.
When you say an iron fist, what do you mean? I mean, I do understand that, you know, part of one of the things you believe in is bringing back the death penalty.
That's under a referendum, yes. If you look carefully, that's under a referendum.
Okay. But so when you talk about using an iron fist, what does that mean?
Enforce your bylaws. Where there is crime, don't just ignore it. When people try and report crimes at the South African Police Service, they mustn't be pushed away. Things like this needs to change. The system needs to change, and care needs to come in. Crime, there's no city without crime. There really isn't. Throughout the world, there's no city without crime. Yet where you have a functional police force, a functional law enforcement that are enforcing the law, things are going to change.
Well, that is the case, except unless your party comes into power and you do shut Cape Town off from the rest of the country, we're in a situation where the police fall under the national government. So once again, you wouldn't be able to do anything about that.
Remember,
as a councillor for the ward, what can you do? What would you be able to do to help people with dealing with the situation?
Remember, we were promised in 2019 in the national elections a provincial police force. We were promised a provincial railway. It's never happened. So that's where you need to have, and also with regards to, and we are not wanting to take control. We are not interested in taking control. We are not politicians. We are businessmen. We are a community group that wants to return the tax that we pay. We want to keep it in the Western Cape. We want to have professionals in place, where we're sitting looking at this load shedding debacle right now, where you need to have professionals in place to maintain things. Water is another thing as well. It comes down to maintenance. It comes down to planning. And that's what needs to change.
Okay, so I live in a flat in Sea Point, let's say, which is, you know, always a possibility. Why should I vote for you?
If you want change, if you're going to keep going on the same thing, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, it's not going to happen. It needs to change. The system needs to change.
But how do I know you're going to bring that change?
We have promised that we would bring that change. We would go into a coalition with somebody to enforce a referendum. 58% of voters, they want to have a referendum in the Western Cape. I'm not necessarily saying any certain party's voters. I'm saying 58% of the voters want to have that referendum. We will the ones who be allow it. You've got other parties that are all climbing on the bandwagon now, so that's stating that they would support independence. Any party with a national agenda will not support independence. We have other parties running along the Atlantic seaboard where 93% of their voters do not live in the Western Cape. So please explain how they can support independence.
Thank you very much, Gavin.
You're welcome. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, over to you, Howard.
Thank you. So Wayne Sussman, you found some electricity hidden away somewhere deep within Johannesburg.
Hi, Howard. I'm back. How are you doing?
I'm delighted you found a generator somewhere. These elections, is apathy going to win them?
Well, we've got to remember, unlike national and provincial elections, that actually the turnout in the last few elections, in local government elections, has been higher. Yes, we're in a time of COVID. Yes, strangely, the election is on a Monday. Howard, I know that before you became a celebrated webinar host and publisher of the Jewish Report, you knew a thing about elections. Elections were never held on a Monday. So they usually are held on a Wednesday. We once held them on a Tuesday. So that worries me a bit about turnout, that all people from all cross sections of life will either go home to their communities, to their families, or go away for the long weekend. So I'm worried about turnout in that regard. However, what excites me is the amount of candidates running. There's a record number of independents. It's almost double the amount of independents we had last time. I'm excited by the fact that there are a lot of new parties running. I'm not excited by the ballot spammers, Howard. That's a worrying new phenomenon. I don't think that was such a big problem in your time. That's when you have a person who's running in every single ward in the municipality. So there's some wonderful apps, and you can actually check how many times that candidate's on the ward. But I think it's going to be a fascinating election. I mean, I'm getting so many calls of people who just saying that the metros are going to be even closer than last time. And what a fascinating few days we have ahead of us.
So let's talk about coalitions, because these elections are really going to be, in some of the metros, about coalitions. We presume that Cape Town's going to remain in DA hands, but Johannesburg, there probably won't be a real winner. Pretoria, Tshwane probably is not going to be a real winner. It's possible as well that in Ekurhuleni and eThekwini, there may not be winners as well. Who are potential bedfellows with whom in these elections?
That's a great question. So this is the way I'd answer the question. We start off with what we know now. Okay, so who are currently in coalitions with each other? And then I'm going to speak to you about what's been said on the campaign trail. Okay, so what we know right now, nationally, is that the ANC is working with Good, the ANC is working with Al Jamaa, the ANC and IFP are working after the marriage between the DA and the IFP broke down in the city of Johannesburg. We don't know if that relationship will continue after the elections. We know that the African Independent Congress, which has been an important party in a metro like Ekurhuleni and Rustenburg, are working with the ANC. We know with the DA, the Freedom Front and the African Christian Democratic Party have been reliable coalition partners for the DA. The Congress, the COPE Party, they mostly work with the DA, in some instances with the ANC. So that's what we know now. What's been said on the campaign trail is the following. That the DA will not work with the EFF, even though for the last 5 years, the EFF are the reason why the DA was able to see out its term in Tshwane. They're the reason why in some of the most conservative towns in South Africa, like Modimolle, the old Nailstrom, Mokgopong, the DA, Freedom Front and EFF have worked together there for the last 5 years, but the DA have said they won't work with the EFF. Then we know that the Action SA party will not work with the ANC. And we know that the Freedom Front will work with the DA, and Al Jamaa have confirmed that they will work with the ANC again. So that's what we know and what's also been said. I hope that answers the question.
So Wayne, you commentate for Daily Maverick, you commentate for ENCA. Give us some predictions of, say, Johannesburg. What do you think will happen?
I think without a shadow of a doubt, the party which finishes first will get the lowest ever percentage for a leading party. I think there will not be an outright majority. I think there's a chance that Action SA are going to surprise people and finish in the top 3, which would be a very interesting achievement for a small party, for a new party, not a small party. So I think the ANC are likely to finish first, the DA are likely to finish second, and I think it's going to be a very interesting race with Action SA for EFF and the EFF for third place. And I think the coalition negotiations are going to be fascinating afterwards.
Is it possible that Herman Mashaba is mayor in, for example, a DA Action SA coalition with the Action SA being a third or fourth largest party?
Yeah, I think if Mashaba gets above 15, 18%, 20% of the vote, I think he has a case to be made that he is a credible candidate to get a second shot at being mayor. The question is, will the DA and the Action SA and possibly parties like the Freedom Front and the ACDP and maybe the IFP get over 50% to the mark? I think it's very, very difficult to predict right now. Were there a lot of parties like the Patriotic Alliance, who I think the ANC wouldn't ideally want to work with? The DA won't want to work with them either. They're going to do well. Al-Jama'ah and Lenasia, even though they haven't run such a good campaign. So Howard, when we look at the elections this time compared to 2016, there are so many actors, there are so many variables that it's really impossible to work out how the numbers will finish in Johannesburg.
So Wayne, what does a disastrous electricity week like this week look like for the ANC? Do voters want to go and take revenge?
So I think I always give, when I give analysis, credit where credit's due. I think the ANC had an incredible few months at the start of 2021. They were winning by-election after by-election. They were picking up wards across the country. They had some struggles in KwaZulu-Natal. And then they had the list debacle, which, I mean, most people have forgotten about it, but that was quite embarrassing for the ANC. And their posters were last on the wall, on the street polls. But then Cyril Ramaphosa, who's obviously a vote magnet, he got in his stride. He was covering the length and breadth of this country. And I thought the ANC were gaining a lot of momentum. And other parties were losing a lot of momentum. And I think that this week is a disaster for the ANC. You sense exasperation from the Deputy President, David Mabuza, today. Howard, I've been focusing very strongly on where national leaders are campaigning. And I don't know if I've read it incorrectly, but it seems like the ANC's closing rally is in Ekurhuleni, which would be unprecedented, by the way, because it's always in Johannesburg. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I misread it. But I mean, just signs like that you have to do. If it's not your main closing rally, it's one of the main closing rallies. In the East Rand, in Ekurhuleni, is quite something that it does show that the ANC does feel more vulnerable than before. So they're not in a good position right now. And I agree that electricity, we saw it in 2006. That's what propelled Helen Zille to become the mayor of Cape Town. We've seen it happen since then, that electricity outages really anger people. And I do think they're more likely to vote on Monday.
No, Wayne, the DA hasn't done itself many favors. You look at some of the recent disasters, John Steenhuisen on the Gareth Cliff show. You look at the poster debacle in Durban. Like, the DA is not really helping their own cause, is it?
Yeah. So when I spoke about by-elections earlier, the DA struggled a lot in by-elections earlier in the year. However, they're a very organized party. They were the first party to declare all their major mayoral candidates. They were the first party to have street parties in the polls. They offered a compelling message about getting things done, which, as Tony Leon calls, is a transactional offer. You don't not need to like our values, but you know that we do things better than the ANC and other parties. And so they started off with a lot of momentum. And I think a lot of their missteps and mistakes were self-inflicted. The posters in Phoenix were to do with the lack of party discipline. Those posters should have never been put up. Meltdowns on Twitter could have easily been avoided. Instead of wasting time on Twitter or social media, rather go bring out the base in Tshwane and Johannesburg. And then I cannot understand how John Steenhuisen or his handlers thought it would be a good idea to go onto a radio show with Gareth Cliff with 10 days before the election and speak with a young black lady about a language issue in Stellenbosch. Language issue in Stellenbosch isn't a major electoral issue. John Steenhuisen, again, should rather been on the campaign trail than sitting next to Gareth Cliff. So I think a lot of these, so it's a party started with a lot of momentum. They might get some of it back now because of the focus on the electricity crisis, but through an ill-disciplined campaign and mistakes which could have been avoided, they find themselves in a difficult position, particularly in the Gauteng province.
So Wayne, before you join Peter and myself in questioning people in our last two wards, I just want to try and get you to nail your colours to the mast. Who do you think are going to be the big winners and who are going to be the big losers in this election?
So, Howard, there's certainly national there's the national trends, but I think in many parts of our country we're going to see quirks and results which belie some of those national trends. Like I'm looking at Nelson Mandela Bay, I'm looking at the areas like Graaf-Reinet, where that the DA might lose ground in a lot of parts of the country, but I think there they might not. I think in the city of Cape Town, the DA is likely to be very robust. I think a party like Action SA, which took a big gamble, they decided to only contest 6 municipalities in this country. And if that gamble failed, so first of all, let me just add, Howard, that they are making their debut in a local government election. That's very risky. Very few parties have done that. And the fact that they're contesting so few municipalities makes it really interesting. And it seems like, certainly in the city of Johannesburg, that gamble is going to be paid off, that they've been highly disciplined. And I compare that to parties like the Patriotic Alliance and Al Jamaa, which I feel have been less disciplined. They've spread themselves too thin. So I think Action SA are likely to be winners in Johannesburg again. But as you said earlier, I think besides for Buffalo City and East London and the city of Cape Town, there's a strong chance that no party will get above 50% in any of the other metros, even in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. I think that ANC is going to really battle with turnout. Don't get me wrong, they're going to still win the most overwhelming amount of municipalities. Their support in places like Giyani and in Limpopo and rural Eastern Cape is absolutely rock solid. But no one can tell me right now what's going to happen in the capital city of Pretoria, what's going to happen in Ekurhuleni, what's going to happen in Johannesburg. Gautengers, we might have load shedding tonight, but just remember that you do live in the most exciting political province. Be grateful for that.
Wayne, thank you. You're going to join us for as long as you can while we interview our other candidates. And Peter, only one of the candidates from Umhlanga is joining us this evening, despite our groveling, begging and pleading, and some of them actually confirming that they were joining us. So exactly. Nicole, it's all yours.
So Nicole, it's very interesting. But
I think Ralph is with us as well. Sorry, Ralph is with us too. Oh no, sorry.
Ralph is for Ward 74.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Ralph is in Ward 74. Sorry.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So it's just Nicole. So tell me, Nicole, do you think everybody got frightened off because they think the DA is too powerful?
Well, yes, no. To be very honest, I mean, obviously, I come in not on the back foot, on a strong foot. Having been the current ward councillor here for the last 25 months, I came in after a by-election in 2019, and I really have, epitomized. If I listen to my colleagues from what I think it was Ward 72, and I didn't get the Sea Point ward. But, and I hear so many people saying it, and, I live that dream. I live the interaction on the ground, involved with all the civic groups. And so I have sort of made a name, when I say made a name, but I've really done what I can in order to get to plant myself within the ward, yes.
So do you live in the area?
So I know it's been a discussion this evening. So I live in a ward 36, which is Durban North. And I obviously Ward 34 is Greater Umhlanga, but if I literally there is no boundary. So you step over a road and you're right there. And I've been here my entire life. So yeah.
So while the DA is clearly very strong there, John Steenhuisen and the Phoenix poster issue put a bit of dampened the DA's, the way the DA looks in your area. Tell me about that and how has it impacted?
All right, I think, I'm going to deal with in two parts. I'm going to talk about the John Steenhuisen matter first. And for me, obviously both very they're very contentious kind of subjects. And I can't really comment on the John Steenhuisen matter because I didn't watch I've been on the campaign trail, so emails and what's going on the ground pretty much has taken a back step. But I can very much comment on the Phoenix matter. And for me, you know, yes, it was done from a provincial level rather than a national level. But where we as eThekwini have a difference, there was a differing opinion, but not the rest of the country wasn't involved in what happened in July with the unrest. They weren't privy to, you know, literally bombs and gunshots and screaming and stuff that was going on. We were very protected. I mean, I was on the ground from the Sunday nights, probably 7 nights. I got maybe 5 hours sleep. It was incredible. It took me back to late 80s, early 90s. That sort of weird energy. So I think had it been done differently, where the context had been given prior to the posters just being flattered, so that when people saw the posters, they understood the story behind it. It might have been a different story, but because it went the opposite way around, and then it was more explaining, so coming off a back foot. But they were, you know, people, there's residents that are well done, you know, there's residents that are a little bit, okay, well, that's not the best you could have done. But having lived those 5 days in complete chaos, and I mean, even my daughter thought she was going to die. She's 15 years old, and she was like, Mom, I'm going to die. So yeah, I think context in this particular instance would have played a better part if it had been done correctly.
Okay. No, I hear that. And that experience, those 5 days, I mean, the guys in KZ and all of you experienced something that we wouldn't have even understood. You really did feel like you were in a war zone. Now, 100%. Your local government at the time couldn't do a lot to help you. Now, put yourself in that situation. You become ward councillor again, and how can you help? How would you be able to help? How would you make a difference?
Okay, so if I had to, so we're going to look at 2 scenarios. If I had to become a ward councillor, there you are. If I had to become a ward councillor in an ANC-run city, it's vastly different that if I become a ward councillor in a DA-run city, it's looking positive that it could change. I think ultimately it's the accountability. I mean, obviously we had absolutely no Metro Police representative at all. To the point where, you know, the head of the Metro Police was creating more of a, he was firing the problem more than trying to appease the problem. I mean, I take you back, we went on an oversight last week, Monday, to a clinic. Now, just bear in mind, in July, we had no Metro Police representation. Last week, the DA did an oversight, which we entitled to do at a local clinic after receiving a number of complaints. And within 20 minutes of being there, we had 22 Metro Police members in 11 vehicles that literally swooped down, and yeah, they were there. They were told by the head of Metro Police. So obviously, you know, if we go back to the current situation, Metro Police is politicized. It's being captured. And if we were going to go into a DA-run environment, it is that we would, you know, we'll get the basics right, where police and bylaws and so forth need to be upheld. So yeah.
Okay, and so but throw in Action SA. I mean, as just after having listened to what Wayne was saying, it was quite interesting because there is a possibility that they can shake up even Umhlanga.
Yes,
how,
100%.
how would that impact? What do you think the chances of that happening?
Well, we've done a lot of canvassing. So anybody that understands the Democratic Alliance will know, and exactly what Wayne said is that we get the basics right. We do our homework and we do the basics. So and the affiliation, you know, obviously your vote is private, but you know, I would say a vast amount of people, was a very low turnout in terms of Action SA support when we've done the canvassing. So I think, you know, for the greater part, Ward 36, listen to me, Ward 35 is safe from Action SA. Yeah, I really do. Yeah.
Okay. And any of the other parties and EFF?
Well, yeah, I don't. Very similar. I mean, their posters came up late. There's been absolutely no canvas. I mean, campaigning. Actually, SA did a campaign where they did a loudspeaker drive-by. But there's been absolutely very little on the ground in terms of campaigning. So it's very difficult. I mean, and you know, the fundamental of what I've been hearing tonight is everybody keeps saying they all represent different parties. But keep saying the same thing. The narrative is exactly the same. We need to make change. And that is where we at the DA we are the strongest opposition in eThekwini. We are the ones that have raised the most questions. So, you know, by chunking it off into the smaller parties, you really do take away the fundamental of the purpose of opposition, or hopefully as the ruling party.
So just my last question to you is, yes. I am living in Umhlanga and I have a problem. The water is gushing out from in my garden. And yes. I have done everything I could. And I turn to you. Firstly, do you give out your cell phone number?
Okay, so I'm a real estate agent by trade. So my cell phone number is everywhere already. So yes, 100%. I have the open door policy. I only have one telephone. So yes.
Okay, so so I contact you and say help, what will you do?
Okay, so my immediate response is obviously we have a bit of a problem with the call center, so logging a fault, but I have got direct access to the managers. I've got direct access to the head of water, and pending the disaster or the nature of the fault, there's a direct call to them. And you know, and this is something I can really attest to, is my turnaround times in Umhlanga, when I talk about Greater Umhlanga, are really, really great. And it is because of the fact that I've got a really worker-friendly type of relationship with the city officials. So yeah, you would get almost an immediate response.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Nicole.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks
Howard?
for having me. Thank you.
So Wayne, I don't know if you saw some polls that came out, I think yesterday, that said, in fact, the entire eThekwini Durban municipality may no longer be an ANC majority.
Yeah, I saw that, Howard. The one thing I'd say is some of those samples were really small. And that's one of the sad things about this campaign, is that we've had precious little polling. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, why I cover by-elections, because I think it is some kind of indicator of what's going on in the country. But so on the one hand, Councillor Bowman would be very excited about that poll, but I'm sure her colleagues in Tshwane would be saying, how can we be at 15% in the poll? I think they had the DA in Tshwane at 15%. So those two numbers didn't stand out to me. I find it very hard to believe that the ANC is over 60% in Tshwane. There's no trends or indications when one looks at the 2019 results, when one looks at by-election trends, which one looks at what happened in 2016, that the ANC is on track to get over 60% of the vote in Tshwane. And it would be a stunning upset if the ANC had to continue. Yes, they are going to fall in eThekwini in this election, but I don't see them falling from 54 to the low 30s. They might, I think, very well fall under 50%, but Howard, I don't see them falling to the low 30s. That would be an utter disaster for them.
So, Wayne, the last ward we're talking about this evening is, in fact, Johannesburg Ward 74, and it's a very interesting ward. Do you want to tell us why you found it so interesting before Peter speaks to Sanjeev, who's from Action SA and standing in that ward?
Great. So I'm actually in Ward 74 now, so I feel somewhat qualified to speak about it. I mean, this is a fascinating ward which extends from Melrose all the way to what my friend Herbie Opland would call Alex West, I think, Bramley area. So by the way, this is one of the fascinating things about wards in Johannesburg. A lot of the wards in suburbs cover such large swaths of territory that it's very hard for a ward to have a specific identity, which you might see in other parts of the country and certainly other small towns. So this includes Melrose, it includes Highlands North, it includes parts of Bramley. Maybe I'm leaving out some of the places. So it's a fascinating ward, different income brackets, and I'm glad that we've got some of the councils on here tonight.
So Peter, you're going to kick us off in the ward by talking to the Action SA candidate, who's Sanjeev.
Sanjeev, yes, of course. Hello, Sanjeev. How are you doing?
Good evening, Peter. I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Good. So you're coming in. Action SA has never been in an election before, right? Although Herman Mashaba was mayor. There's some people, so really it's his face that you're all standing behind. Am I right? Okay, but when people look back at Herman Mashaba as mayor, I know Action SA says he did a lot of good, but he left. And when he left, there were a lot of people who didn't say great things about him. You're standing on those shoulders. How do you think that you're going to win your position?
Well, Peter, just to give you a brief history, I've been kind of documenting Herman Mashaba from his DA days. And personally, I believe that he stands with conviction on what he says. Some of his statements can be controversial, as politics will normally be, but I believe he can bring a positive change for the city and I think holistically, nationally as well. For me as an individual, I'm living in Bramley now for about 28 years. I live in the heart of Bramley, so I can attest to how this suburb has changed. And it has not been a change for the positive, it's been a decline. I've been involved for roughly 5 years now in community work. I'm also the CPF chair for Sector 2. And I'm trying to bring issues to the fore with regard to accountability. I heard some other members and colleagues speak about JMPD, and you know what, we need to table things where our rate of accountability, our policeman to citizen ratio, things like that, our assets within SAPS and JMPD needs to be addressed. Lots of things that needs to be tabled, and we actually need to find a way forward. At council.
So, can I just stop you there? I mean, I suppose coming in on a clean slate is in some ways easier because you don't have any, there are no skeletons, okay? But at the same time, when you say this is what we're gonna do, how can I believe you?
Because I'm already
how do I know you're going to do it?
Because I'm already involved in my community. If anyone wants to sit with me and talk to me about my track record, it's all documented. I can tell you this now. When I got involved, and I'm not going to mention names here. When I got involved, I started studying the Municipal Act, your ward committee, the duties of a councillor. And the first thing I actually went for was to start inquiring, who's this ward committee? Because from what I understand is they're the ones that represent us in forms of public participation, in forms, ideally speaking, in forms of meetings. And apparently from what I learned is they take financial decisions upon the ward or the constituents, and they go ahead with it. And I tell you what, I never got that information. It took me 3 months to actually get that information on who the ward committee was. In fact, I had a member who was the ward committee that gave me the tail around for almost 2 months, saying that I must speak to so and so. I eventually got
the message. That's what I got from that.
Yeah.
So how are you actually going to do things differently? What are you going to do?
We need to set up a ward committee that actually works, that actually has the mandatory minutes, that actually gets public participation, that gets feedback from the ground, and you need to see it on the tabled minutes. You need to see that your concerns, provided that they're valid, are being tabled at council chambers. I have not seen that yet. I've actually to a point 6 months ago, I lodged a formal objection with the DA caucus, and I still have not received almost 70% of the mandatory minutes that's supposed to be held.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjeev. I've been told to move on to the next person. Howard, back to you.
Thank you so much. I'm speaking to Ralph, who's the ANC candidate for Ward 74. Ralph, you're in a very interesting position because in the last elections, about 10,200 people voted, about 7,300 of them voted for the DA. But this year, you've got the DA standing, you've got Action SA, you've got the former DA candidate who was removed by his party without consultation from the ward. If the DA vote actually splits and splinters as a result of that, it is possible that, in fact, the ANC could potentially win that ward.
Yeah, I certainly think so, because the momentum that is there is very interesting. We are in a position, obviously, to upstage the DA this time around because of the commitments that we have made to the people in terms of service delivery.
So let's talk about that commitment, because the ANC's commitment to service delivery has never been a track record that anyone should ever be proud of. In fact, let us say the ANC's track record in Johannesburg has been a complete and utter disaster. The city is filthy. The homelessness is enormous. The potholes are immense. The track record of service delivery of the ANC to Johannesburg makes us all ashamed to be residents of the city.
Howard, I think the ANC has indicated unequivocally that we are ready to turn the next page. And having identified those things that were not properly done, we have decided now that this time around, we will be able to correct them. And as a result, we have put forward certain things that have to be prioritized in terms of service delivery. When you look at the water problems, electricity, public spaces, refuse removal, which is another very important issue as far as we are concerned. We believe very strongly so that we'll be able to harness the energy that we have, and with this commitment and also with the manifesto that we have, we believe strongly that we'll be there to deliver to the people. And what's very important again...
Let us ask, you say the ANC is now ready to turn the page. What has it been waiting for the past 27 years in order to do that?
But it has not been a question of waiting. In every other situation, 7 weeks may happen where one has to review the policies, review the way of doing things better than before. And it happens almost every time in anybody's life, even in an ordinary situation. The ANC has not waited, and there are certain things that have been done that the people have benefited. In fact, supply of water in certain areas where previously there was none, provision of housing, in as much as there is still a backlog, but this has been recognized as a contribution that the people have made, rather the ANC has made to the people in different areas.
So Ralph, let's talk practically, for example, about the provision of water in this ward specifically. You will know, I presume, the townhouse complex Melrose Gate and Kent Place. In Melrose Gate, people have to leave their homes every morning and go to their local gym to shower because the water pressure is so low. that they're unable to shower in their own homes. This has been going on for months and months and months. I want to know, what is your plan here? How is it possible that in an area of Johannesburg that is controlled by the ANC, that people have to leave their homes because our municipality is unable to deliver a simple thing like water for people to shower before going to work? What sort of service delivery is that?
I think that's one other thing that having been recognized that the fact, there's that problem, it is time for us now to engage the service provider, who is the Johannesburg Water,
They've
to
been
investigate
engaged, Ralph. They've been engaged. This is nothing new. That water problems in this area have been going on for years now. So there's nothing new. There's no page to turn. The ANC has had their opportunity. So why should it be different? Why should we believe that anything will be different when the ANC has failed the citizens of the city?
I think people should believe, because a new commitment has been made, and having recognized the fact that there were some loopholes here and there, all those issues that have been found to be wanting in terms of the water, as you put it, and also in terms of electricity, some intermittent outages and all that, is to engage the supply and the service provider in the form of Johannesburg Water, in the form of City Power, and all other service providers that are involved to service the people. And with this, as I said, it's a commitment that we promise to keep and to carry out with all the energy that we have.
Okay, Ralph, thank you so much. Best of luck for those elections. I think we've got a lot of very angry residents within that ward who will be looking for new solutions from you. But let's also find out whether they'll be looking for some of the solutions from the new DA candidate who's standing in that area, who Belinda takes over as DA candidate from Dave Fisher, who's in fact the incumbent. And Peter, it's your responsibility to hold Belinda to account.
Hello?
Good evening. Belinda. Sorry, I was muted.
Good evening.
Belinda, so yeah, exactly. I know the reality is that all of those problems were problems that the DA needed to deal with as they were in charge of the area. And you are standing in a position that was, I guess you were taking over from somebody who was very popular, who's with us tonight as an independent. So tell me, with all these problems, why has the DA not done anything about it? Why is this area in this situation?
In fact, I would disagree that the DA hasn't done anything about it, because at the moment you'll know that we are still sitting with entities like Joburg Water, which is currently run by the ANC one. But it's a fallacy that the DA hasn't done anything, and I'm sure that the incumbent, who's now independent, would also concur that we've held this Joburg Water to account all the time. The reality is that we are sitting with ailing infrastructure that has been there for 27 years. And as a councillor, if you go to these entities and things are not completed, you have unreliable contractors that are on site sometimes. I mean, this past week, I've literally had to run helter-skelter, phone managers, phone MMCs to try and get things to get done. So the reality is the DA has tried its best to try and hold everybody to account. It's unfortunate that we are sitting with infrastructure that has been there, that has never been serviced or upgraded, and has gone with the number of people that are moving into the ward. That's the reality.
So I appreciate that, but it doesn't help me if I am sitting and trying to make a decision who I'm going to vote for. If I'm going to, if I believe that the DA is not capable of helping me, why should I vote for the DA?
Peter, I'm going to just take the past 4 weeks since I've become the candidate for this ward. Over the past few weeks, I've done a number of oversight visits to the different suburbs in the ward because I wanted to hear why are people, what people are experiencing. Are they experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing, which is load shedding and being days without water, which is what I'm experiencing as a resident as well. And I wanted to hear from people what's being done, what happens when these kind of things happen. And the reality is some of the areas are getting more, a worse deal than others. Some areas are simply ignored by these entities. And I have taken it upon myself to actually go and see what happens. And while I stand there, actually phone some of these entities and contractors to say that things need to be finished before you leave. And that's the problem that we've been sitting with. The problems that we are sitting with now, once again, is stuff that has been there for many, many years. But it is also holding the contractors, holding the entities accountable. You'll be surprised that some of the feedback I'm getting from residents is that they haven't gotten feedback in some areas when they raise a concern from Joburg Water. They don't, maybe the water can go out for days and they don't get feedback. Like today, for example, you don't have people even, there's no contingency for water tankers. But I've taken it upon myself to say, if you're telling me the water is coming out, is only going to come back after 12 hours, have you got a plan in place for water tankers? And I'm able to feed that back to the residents so they at least know what to expect. So the reality is the DA has been very, very proactive in terms of engaging these entities to make sure that there is actually, there's water tankers, they update how far these problems that we're having. I've had to drive, for example, now to my colleague's house to get electricity. And, we've got ESCOM, but there's no communication from the city. And that's the biggest problem that we have, is that as the DA, we hold the entities accountable. We make sure that if people are busy working on electricity, we've had situations where contractors are not very well equipped. There are electricians who come out to fix city power, come and fix electricity, but they leave before the work is done. And as the DA, we've been fighting and making sure that contractors don't just leave a work half done. And that is how we're helping our residents.
But I mean, despite that, I have been in Melrose like 2 weeks in a row where I've seen a big dongers that I have to drive around. And in the middle of the road, there are these big dongers that if I had to drive through them with my car, it would destroy my car. And they've been like that for weeks on end. Now, whose responsibility is that in the middle of Melrose?
The responsibility lies with the city, but also with myself as a sitting councillor as well, to engage these entities. Just today, for example, I have had lengthy discussions with JRA because of their lack of urgency of not finishing what they are doing. We were promised last week, for example, that some of the potholes, sometimes when there's a water leak, just a simple example, there's a water leak, Joburg Water will come in and fix the water, but they will leave everything and it becomes either a sinkhole. So those are some of the things which I have actually engaged with JRA, with Joburg Water, and find out from them, what is the challenge? Why are they not communicating, first of all? And why are things not done within the allocated time? And you'll be amazed that people, all of a sudden, these entities find resources to do stuff in about 24 to 48 hours, which they had been sitting on for quite some time. But I can tell you a number of successes that have happened because I've started engaging these entities. And I don't just leave things to sit. if you tell me, for example, this donga is sitting here and I see there's a few of these that are coming from the same area, I go there and look for myself, because, and you're telling them, but you're telling me you were here and I'm standing here and this has not been fixed. Can somebody come and fix it? And I find that I get results because I go and show them that this needs to be done, and people are paying rates and they need to get what they pay for. Yes. So we are holding them accountable that way.
Okay. Can I ask you something just before we move on? Is the Dave Fisher was the DA councillor before you. What happened? I mean, he's now standing for another party. What happened? Was he kicked out? What was the story?
I knew that question was coming. No, he was not kicked out of the DA. We both went through a process. We both applied for the same position, and we both applied to be councillors. The DA has a very rigorous process of selecting its councillors. It's almost 12 to 18 month process where we get interviews, you get assessed based on what you do in the communities where you are. I've been a councillor in the Honeydew Cosmos City area for 3 years. And they look at some of those things and how you have increased the vote of the DA within areas where normally they wouldn't get support, for example. And some of the other issues that the DA also take into account is in your community. And the last bit of what is done is that we both have to be in we both appear in front of a selection panel where you have to present yourself, what you are able to offer and things like that. And based on that criteria, I won and I got selected as the candidate.
Thank you very much, Belinda, and congratulations. Good luck to all of you for the vote.
Thank you.
Over to you, Howard.
So, Peter, I presume that means the last candidate that I get to speak to is, in fact, Dave Fisher, who looks like he's sitting in the dark. Dave, do I have no electricity in Johannesburg at the moment?
No, you're quite right, Howard. I am. I've been load shedded. I am sitting in the dark, but so far I'm surviving. So yes, I'm here. I'm ready to talk to you about whatever it is that you'd like to ask me.
Well, Dave, you're the sitting councillor for the area. And I want to know what happened. What happened in the DA process? You were an enormously popular councillor within the constituency, and yet you are no longer the DA's candidate. Explain why not.
Well, Belinda's done a good job at trying to explain it. That is the process, and you know, the DA in their wisdom decided not to nominate me as the candidate for the ward. When I made that announcement to my constituents, and we talked earlier about, you know, giving out phone numbers, I have about 5,500 residents' phone numbers in my phone. I communicate with about 3,000 on a daily basis. When I communicated to them that I wasn't the chosen candidate, there was quite a lot of backlash. That backlash went all the way up to John Steenhuisen, who came back without any answers. Mike Moriarty put out a statement that angered a number of people. And the community said to me, don't you want to carry on doing what you're doing? I have a passion for what I've been doing for the last 5 years. The Constitutional Court opened up a window of opportunity for me. And after being persuaded by many members of the community, I decided to take what is a huge leap, because we haven't had an successful independent councillor in Gauteng in the last 5 years. But the mood, I think, is changing, and we've heard quite a lot about that this evening. The mood is changing, and I think we're looking now, residents are looking now for more grassroots level commitment from councillors. Party politics plays an important role at national and provincial level, but at local level, the residents really just want to be able to turn on a tap, flush the toilet, drive down the road. As Peter says, you know, the roads in Melrose and everywhere are full of potholes. That sort of concentration is what I've done for the last 5 years, and I haven't been as successful as we would like to be. But there are two ways to do this. One of them is to communicate as well as you can with the community because they do need feedback. They need to know what's happening, even if it's bad news. If you tell them that there's no water for 24 hours, they will put up with it knowing that it's coming back. But if you tell them nothing, they just get fed up. Then on the other hand, what we need in all councils is a degree of management from councillors who are able to attack the problems that we've got in the institution. The institutions don't run properly. Joburg Water doesn't do its maintenance, and it doesn't get run on a commercial or a business-like manner. I've sat on the finance committee for the last 5 years. We've tried to bring influence at that level to make sure that what we spend is properly spent. What we pay out in salaries gets returned to us in output from employees, which we don't have in Johannesburg. So there are all of those sorts of things which I would like to continue working with the community to be able to build on what we've got, be able to build cohesive communities that stand together, that work together.
Dave, let me stop you then on some practical things. If you were a successful councillor, why do we still have these massive water issues in the suburbs of your ward? Why do we still have these huge pothole problems in your ward? Surely that was your job to fix.
It's well, that's the first thing, is that a councillor is not an electrician. He's not a plumber. He in himself, or she in herself, can't fix the problems. It's the entities that have to do it. So we understand the structure of a municipality, where you have the administration on the one hand, you have the legislature on the opposite side, and then the legislature is where the councillors sit, and across the top, linking this, you've got the executive, and that's where the mayor and his mayoral committee sit. The mayor and the mayoral committee act as the board of directors, and they should be directing the entities and allowing the entities to have the capacity to do the work on the ground. And the councillor has an oversight role on that, and the councillor has an input in council to formulate things like budgets and make sure that there is enough budget available to be able to do this. Unfortunately, we all know that in a city the size of Johannesburg, with 5.5 or 6 million people, the municipality is too big and too unwieldy. And that's part of the reason that the city as a whole doesn't work as it should do. If we could break it down into sub areas or sub municipalities, we would probably get a better return on what it is that we're trying to do.
So Dave, is there any point in voting? Because ultimately, if you as our councillor haven't got the ability to deliver us fixing of potholes, water in our areas, what's the point? Maybe we should just say this whole system's a mess. Why bother having councillors?
Because it's only through the council that we can change what we've got. And it is the council, and it's going to be whoever the new executive in that council is that holds the entities to account. The councillor himself is actually prevented by law from issuing instructions to anybody. So I can't arrive at Kaya Mbandla's office at JRA in Norwood and say to him, I want you to fix the pothole on the corner of this and that. I've got to plead with him, I've got to beg him, I've got to try and cajole him into doing it. And it's a large part of a councillor's job is exactly that. It's creating the relationship between the resident and the entity to see that we can get feedback, we can get our priorities done. And that's one of the things I think that an independent councillor is going to have a lot more influence in, because he's going to have...
Dave, isn't that in fact exactly the opposite? Without the backing and the infrastructure of a large party, can an independent candidate actually do anything? Because when you had a brand name behind you, when you had officials and officers, you had power. As an independent candidate, you may not be able to deliver anything.
Well, no, Howard, I think it works the other way around. I think that one of the problems of the big parties is that they have these caucus structures, which mean that you become a cog in a wheel. So, you have 100 DA councillors in the city of Johannesburg, all of them with different priorities and different needs and different constituents, whereas an independent really focuses only on his particular ward. Ward 74 is a very diverse ward, as we've already heard. So therefore we cover all the diversity in the ward, but I am going to make sure that my ward gets the fair slice of the cake in whatever it is, and I'm going to use my leverage to try and get more of that. So when I'm asked to support something in council, I'm going to have to ask myself, and I'm going to have to ask whoever's putting up that budget or that proposal, what is in it for Ward 74? And if Ward 74 has not got something that is going to be valuable, then I won't vote for it. But I will use that leverage to try and make sure that we get our fair share of the pie.
Dave, my last question to you as we wrap up this panel, and we're going to bring in Wayne right at the end. But my last question to you is really almost a philosophical question. We know that in the last election you got 7,300, if I'm not mistaken, votes. 7,800. But that vote is now going to be split, and it's going to be split between Belinda and yourself and Sanjeev. And there's a good chance that if people in fact split the vote and the DA vote splinters, that in fact Ralph may very well win the ward. Don't you think there's a danger of that?
No, I did some very hard thinking about this before I took this great leap of faith into standing as an independent. And I looked at the numbers, I looked at the turnout. Wayne is far better at doing this than I am. But when I look at it, with anything like a reasonable turnout, I have a very good chance of getting a majority. And all I need to do is I need to get one more vote than the next person in this thing. And I think that right now, looking at and I've done a lot of canvassing, I've done a lot of communicating with the community, I think I'm there with a very good chance of being continuing to be the ward councillor for Ward 74 and continuing to do what is my passion, and that is to try and help the people of Ward 74. I don't think that the idea of well, you know, and if Ralph got in, well, it would be very good. He would get in on his merits, because that would have to be what the people in the ward want. The people in the ward wanted me to stand, and I am standing. I've worked very hard to try and make sure that I have got my message out. And I'm confident that on Monday we'll see the fruit of that come in.
Well, Peter Cross-Maunder, Wayne Sussman, it may be load shedding, but do you think we've been meandering in the dark tonight?
Peter, I always defer to you. You're my editor.
I don't think so. I think it's been fascinating discussion. I think that I've certainly learned. I've been impressed by certain people, not so impressed by other people. Has it changed my vote? We'll see on Monday.
No, it's been said before. I think it's fantastic that people are running for office. It's very, very difficult. You've spent, this has been a shorter campaign, but still to go out there every single day, try to convince voters that you want to make a difference, that you want to make a difference to your ward, to your community, to your city. I think it's a very, very powerful thing. So I hope that people have been convinced tonight to get behind the candidate who's been the most compelling and the most convincing. And I hope that we have long queues on Monday. You must always hope for queues. You must worry that people in your neighborhood are not turning out to vote. So I hope wherever you are, whether it's Umhlanga, in Sea Point, in Ward 74, Ward 72, that you get out to vote and enjoy this process. It's very new in our country, and it's very important that Monday brings with the desired result, which will take our cities forward and towns forward for the next 5 years.
So let us maybe end with one thought, and that is there are no perfect candidates, but at the same time, there are no perfect voters. And regardless of whether the people that we've had tonight or the people standing in your ward are the perfect candidate for you, there's still someone who best represents your hopes and your dreams as an individual, as a community, as a society. And our obligation is to make sure that we have a revolution. And we have a revolution every 5 years in municipal elections, and we have a revolution every 5 years in provincial and national elections. And it's our obligation to go out there and put the best potential candidate into a position of power. And if we don't, we have no right ever to complain. We mustn't complain about the water. We mustn't complain about the electricity. Now is our opportunity. We've been given the power in our own hands to go take control of our futures. And if we don't do that on Monday, we failed as the citizens of South Africa.
I agree.
A big thank you to all of our candidates. Please turn on your cameras. An enormous thank you to Dylan Berger, who's helped us put together a fantastic panel tonight. Are there any last words that anyone wants to say before we send everyone with their candles off to bed tonight?
Yes, good luck. Good luck to everyone. Yeah, wish them well.
You know something, Sanjeev, the important thing is, think back 27, 28 years ago when we weren't given these opportunities to have an amazing array of candidates on a webinar, and then you realize how far we've come as a country, despite all the crap, despite all the blackouts, despite all the water shortages. It is just remarkable to be able to live in a vibrant and fantastic democracy. Cool, guys.
Howard, Belinda, Daniel, and David have their hands up.
Okay. Quickly, Belinda first.
I just wanted to say that thank you for this opportunity, and I want to just encourage the voters of Ward 74. What you have told me over the past 4 weeks, as during my walks, that you have never experienced such interaction with your ward councillor. That is a taste of what you will get for the next 5 years. So when you get into that voting booth, put your vote next to the DA, because we get things done. Thank you.
Cool. Dave, you had your hand up?
Yeah, please, Howard. I think you make a very important point, and I won't respond to what's just been said, but I will respond to what you said earlier. We have to appeal to residents to vote with the heads and the hearts together to try and find something which is going to be what is best going to suit them going forward. And I think we're seeing a change, and I hope I'm right in this, that we're seeing a change where we have done the same thing for many years now, and it hasn't had any result. People are now feeling that they have to find some sort of change. I think the fact that we have a new party is an indicator of this. And I think we're going to find, and I'm hoping we're going to find on Tuesday morning when we see the results come in, that they're going to be a far better choice of vote from voters rather than repeating what they've done in the past. So my appeal is for all voters to make an informed decision. Think about it. Make sure that you've gone through what it is that's going to suit you and your specific set of needs going forward. Thanks, Howard, and thanks for the opportunity to your paper.
Justin, I think you had your hand up too.
Thank you, firstly, and sorry about the network problems earlier. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Peter. I think Dave's onto something. As an independent, an independent has never won it. I would sit in a similar seat to him. So I'm saying, guys, let's stop with the old Toyota from 1980s. Let's go with the 2021 BMW. Thank you.
Anyone else want to have a last word before we send everyone off to
Daniel
bed?
and Nicole. Daniel and Nicole still want to say a lot.
And Ralph as well, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so throughout this campaign, one of the most surprising questions I've gotten is, how can we help you? What can we as residents do to support you as a councillor? And it's been an amazing question to hear, because I think that's what's going to be the future of making this country better, is active citizenry. So whoever you choose come Monday, get behind your candidates, get involved, and we can make this country better through that. So please, guys, after the elections, it doesn't end here. Carry on supporting your councillor, carry on being involved. And that's all I'm asking of you.
Great.
Cool. Ralph, you wanted to say something? Let's just get you unmuted. Cool, Ralph, we will.
Electorate, to the electorate, that on the 1st of November, take the right decision, make it a point that you vote for the African National Congress candidate, that is me. I commit to carry out all the objectives for the community, to be available to them 24/7, to have an open door policy of communication, not only to have the electorate be seen, but they have to be heard, because one has to be part and parcel of their plight and give feedback regularly where issues have been raised. Vote ANC. Thank you.
So, Nicola, I think you wanted to say something?
Thanks very much, Howard. Yeah, just a quick word. Daniel did say some of what I wanted to say. I'm very sad that the Freedom Front candidate, Mr. Jacobson, didn't attend the debate. I think it would have been valuable to hear what they're offering, because we put our cards on the table in many ways, and that would have been a vital part of the discussion. But I think as politicians, our primary role as well is to bring our communities together. And I call on people as well, come the 1st of November and the results, that let's build our partnerships in our communities, because together we do more, not dividing our communities and splitting. And I think we've seen terrible divisions happening across many wards through the pursuit of political votes. And it's really damaging for our communities, our neighbors, our residents, and that needs to come to an end, and we need to build together. Thank you.
Thank you. Colin, any last word from you?
No, thank you. I started off this and I was quite nervous, so thank you for giving me the opportunity again. Just in closing, I traditionally have always voted for a strong opposition. I'm saying because I didn't want the ANC in power. I want to say that Action SA has got the opportunity to be in power, and we are a really true diverse party able to make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks. Sanjeev, and then we'll give Nicole closing words.
Well, I want to thank everyone for this opportunity. I think we had a very productive meeting. And yes, vote for your candidate of choice. And you know what? Vote without putting your emotions, separate your emotions, be critical in your evaluation, and base your vote on facts, not promises. Promises don't work. For the last 27 years, we heard promises. So look for track record. That's all I'm saying. Look for a track record and vote with that level of critique. Thank you very much.
Thanks. So Nicole, final word of the evening goes to you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think this has been my debut webinar, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, seeing other people's opinions and seeing what's happening in the rest of the country. So it's been very exciting. As you can see, we've just gone into the load shed hit us now. But yeah, and I concur with my colleagues, is that a council is one person. Ultimately, the ward that we represent is a couple of thousand people. And there's, I've got obviously community activists and so forth, but let's all be the change agents. We've got a country, we've got a beautiful country, and we need to do what we need to do in order to support it so that it can support us. So thank you very much.
Peter, I see Gloria has said to us she's now more confused than ever after tonight's webinar. Should we send everyone off to bed in the darkness?
I think so. I think we've got lots to sleep on.
Wayne Sussman, and to all the candidates, thank you for joining us this evening. Don't forget to book your tables for Jewish Achiever Awards. Don't forget to vote for your favorite candidates for Jewish Achiever Awards. All the details in this week's edition of the Jewish Report. Thank you for joining us this evening. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
No.
No. As the lights come on. Power has just arrived back. Can you believe it?